Hey everybody, welcome. We'll just give it a few minutes here today and we'll get started in a little bit. Another minute or so, we'll let people join and then we'll get going. Feel free to let me know in the chat box. Hey Tiana, hey Janine. Glad you guys are here. Hi Gigi. Marilyn, welcome. Carrie. So glad to see some names that I know. Hopefully this is useful to you guys today. Janine, you already know what you're doing in the kitchen. I don't know why you're here. I just saw your renders. They're gorgeous. Hi, Gigi. Where are you joining from? Virginia. Nice. East Coast. Me too. Sure, it's a lot nicer down there right now than it is up here. It's already freezing. I'm in Pennsylvania and it's already like 40 degrees out and there's frost on the ground and everything. So I could go for some Virginia weather right now. All right, we'll give it one more minute and then we'll get started. We have so much to go over today. Lots of create new product goodness. So yeah, I'm excited. Maybe. Cool. So let me pull up the actual webinar here. Okay, we'll get started now. If you guys have any questions, just throw them in the Q&A and we'll get to them at the end. We're going to go over how to design your dream kitchen in Foyr Neo today. Lots of tips and tricks. That's me. If you don't already follow us on Instagram, please do. That's where all the fun stuff happens. Do also head to foyr.com, and we should add to this the newly launched community, which is community.foyr.com, where you can create your own profile, portfolio, connect with other designers, find work, and do online learning. We're in the process of starting networking groups, all sorts of fun stuff. So definitely check that out. And we'll type that in the chat box so that you guys can have that link directly. Okay, so today's webinar, we're going to be going over, first and foremost, one piece of feedback that I get constantly on demos with designers is that there's some confusion over what to even search for when it comes to kitchens. So we're going to go over what words to search for specifically in the catalog and how you can get creative and use something like a wall partition to replicate something else. And that'll make more sense a little bit later. Next, we're going to go over how to create custom cabinetry using the Create New Product tool and also geometrics from the catalog. We're going to go over the different pantry options and what you should be searching for there. And then lastly, we'll discuss how to apply trim to the top of your cabinets and how to create custom countertops in Create New Product. Okay. So first off, you guys might want to just take a screenshot of this, but these are like the big words that you're going to be searching for in the actual product catalog when you're in editor. So if you type in kitchen cabinet, you will get results in the catalog, but you're going to get more like sets, kitchen sets, right? Maybe it's L-shaped, maybe it's U-shaped, but you're not going to have the level of customization that you may need searching for kitchen cabinets. But if you search for base unit and wall unit, you're going to get those individual units that don't have any hardware on them. You can obviously apply different textures and then customize the hardware, resize as needed, and fit them together. So that's number one, search for base unit and wall unit. Second is cabinet shutters, which I'll show you. The kitchen that I had pulled up a second ago is a combination of cabinet shutters, which is just the door with no hardware, and base units and Create New Product, kind of like a base for the Create New Product. It's all three rolled into one. So don't feel like if you start using a cabinet shutter, you have to stick with that for the entire design or base units, or we're going to be using everything. Next, for pantries. Pantry, crockery unit, a tall unit, which is similar to just like a like a single door pantry shutter that you might find like at Home Depot. And also sideboard down here will give you results for kitchen items. You can search for kitchen island directly, and there's lots of really nice items, or we'll go over today how to build that custom. Handles and knobs is where you're going to find all of those. Oops. Wall, floor, and ceiling docked cubes are going to be your best friend in the software pretty much always, but I'll show you where you can use these or where it might be a better option to use the Create New Product tool, depending on what you're doing. Partition, single door, open door, glass door, French door. You're going to get results for all of that. So great for, pantries or closets within your kitchen space. The partitions, I'll show you how to use those creatively. Floating shelves or just shelving units will give you some really nice options. Molding and trim, if you type that in, that's where you're going to find all of your straight pieces, corner pieces for the top of your cabinetry. And then for staging, which you'll see a lot of in this kitchen, you're going to go to the staging category and then select food, drink, and crockery. And that's going to bring up everything that you need for all of those like really nice details. Sideboard we went over, and then wall paneling is a really nice option to create some texture in the back of your cabinets or maybe your pantry without having to build that custom. So I'll show you what all of that looks like. All right. I hope that gave you guys enough time to take a snapshot. If not, just let me know. We can pull it up again later. Okay, so we're going to be working in this kitchen today. Very large, probably wouldn't have everything going on in one space, but I wanted to be able to show you just in one project the different options that there are. So you'll see, I'm just going to double click over here. This is a crockery unit that I've simply doubled. And looks like that, but so many different options, more modern options in the catalog that then you can change the textures to. If you didn't like this hardware, always keep in mind that you have the invisible material tool available to you in the texture catalog, and you can apply that directly. It's under other. You can apply that directly to the hardware. It won't apply to anything else. And then you can place your own hardware from handles and knobs in the catalog over top, and that's what will render, not what the original piece was. So you always have that option for customization. Over here, I'm just going to double click. I've used bifold doors that are open. And in 2D mode, I've drawn out these walls to create a walk-in pantry. And you'll notice that I have this vaulted ceiling. So my walls in 2D are set to 18 feet. But then when you actually go into the pantry itself, you can see I have recessed lighting and the ceiling is much lower. So what I've done here and here, you'll see that this wall, that this crockery unit is backed up against a wall. And then also that there's walls here. I have drawn walls in 2D mode for this example, and then put them into partial wall mode. So when you select a wall, if you haven't done this already, wall properties is going to pop up. The first option is your full wall height. So you'll see here I have it at 18. For these walls where I had that little closet there, they're white, and that's because I've selected them, changed them to partial wall, which is going to make those changes only apply to that specific wall. And I've changed this to 10 foot 3 inches here. So that's option number one. Then I placed those door panels up against to give the impression of a little closet here. Another option that you have is to create the appearance of a quote unquote faux ceiling by using a ceiling docked cube, which is what I've done. Here, this is actually a floor docked cube, but I simply dragged and dropped it from the catalog. It looks like this. It's just a white cube, drag and drop it, and then resize it. Behind the space, I made it the same height, 10 foot 3 inches, as the wall on the other side of this walk-in here. And now it gives the appearance of a wall, even though it's not. Okay, this was drawn with literal walls, and then this ceiling here was made with a ceiling duct cube again that I brought down this time and then applied the recessed lighting to it directly. So there's lots of different ways to create different heights, or to also just, if you have like a lower unit here, to kind of cap it off. Because I had a straight, let me know if this is making sense or not, because I had just a straight kind of rectangle across and I didn't need any specific custom, I was able to use, in this case, just a cube and resize it straight across. But for this area over here where these walls are a little wonky, for this, I used create new product so that I could make these custom cuts and fit it into place. So you'll see when I select this, I can click on modify. And this is a piece that I made custom, which I can show you guys. We're going to be going into create new product, and this will be very simple by the end of it. I drew that on the floor and traced it to this shape. And then when I re-entered 3D mode, I just put it into free movement and brought it up off the floor. And then I applied the same paint color to kind of cap this off. So now if you were to walk in, it would have a ceiling. Okay. Just a quick overview there. Let's focus on cabinetry right now, and that way we can get into create new product. So I'm just going to double click here. Like I said earlier, this entire cabinet unit here is a combination of cabinet shutters, which if I select this and click on edit, you'll see looks like this. You go to the catalog and type that in. You're going to get a ton of options. These are the doors on that one closet. And then these are all of the shutter options. So it's just, I'm just going to drag and drop it. It's just the facade, right? So we don't have the base behind it. We're going to create that base, and there's no handles, but this is nice because that gives you a lot of control over the customization of this piece. So it's that. There we have some drawer options. It's whole base units. So we have drop-in sink, and especially farmhouse drop-in sink base units. So again, I'll click on edit, and you can type that in, drop-in sink base unit, and you will get options like this. Just so you guys can see, they come in different sizes, different colors, and styles. So I've dragged and dropped that, and then placed my farmhouse sink, which you can also search for directly as farmhouse sink. It comes in stainless steel, but you can always change it to ceramic or porcelain from the texture catalog. And okay, so cabinet shutters, whole base units, but with the shutters, I have to create that backing, right, in that base so that I have this toe kick. So that's where create new product came in handy. So I'm just going to click on modify to show you what this looks like, and then I'll show you in a separate room how to create this. So I've drawn this out. I've cut areas where I put in my sink base unit. I didn't need to have the cabinet there, so I cut away here. Over here, I have a stove. I cut away there, and as needed. Okay, so let me show you how I did that. I'm just going to use this room. Over here, I'm going to select create new product. Just going to look at the floor, and I'm just double clicking so that the software orients me towards the floor. And I'm going to start with the rectangle tool. So the very first thing that you're doing when you're drawing out cabinetry is you're just defining the very outer border. Then we're going to start to make more definition and create cavities where we need them. So I'm going to just start in this corner, click on the floor, drag this out, and let's say my cabinetry is going to go from here down to here and then stop. Next, what I'm going to do is you can use your ruler tool. So if you have a specific, obviously a specific depth for your base units, in the US, it's typically 24 inches. So I'm going to set that. You could use the ruler tool to click on the edge, move it out, and then you can type in a specific dimension, or you can just click again to mark it. So we'll do a U shape since I already started that. There we go. right? So now I have a nice dotted line guide that now I can draw over top and start to define the different areas. So I can use the pen tool, which will draw straight lines, or I can use the rectangle tool since I have a nice rectangle here. So that's the faster option. I'm just going to click onto the ruler and it's going to snap me into place using line snapping. And then click again. I'll click the escape key to get out of that cursor. And now what I need to do is raise these cabinets up off the floor. So that's where push-pull comes in handy. Push-pull, you're going to use it constantly when you use this tool, gives your products height, depth, and also allows you to resize an individual plane. So that's going to really come in handy with kitchens and baths. So I'm simply clicking once, I'm not holding down my cursor, and then I'm raising this off the ground. Let's say we have a 35-inch, and then we're going to have an inch thick countertop for that 36-inch standard. And there we go. For this bottom here, you can click and slice it away. I just clicked and pushed it down a couple times, and now it's gone. So now I have that cavity. If ever you run into an issue where the center is not going away, again, remember that you have that invisible material texture and you can just apply the invisible material texture to that cavity and it won't render. Okay, so from here, I'll click done. And now I can go in and grab my cabinet shutters and apply them directly. So I'll just drag and drop one for now. I can resize this. What's nice about these is that you can raise it off the ground. Say we have a 6-inch toe kick. You can just go to edit, select your raise from floor, enter 6 inches. It'll set that for you. And then you can just resize this down to be flush with the top of this unit. And because we don't have a ton of depth here, right? We've got maybe 1 inch for that shutter, but because your lighting is up top, casting down, let me see if I can show you an example. That shadow that's created just from that 1-inch lip is going to create the illusion of more depth than there actually is. So you're going to have that illusion of like an inset toe kick. And I'll pull up an example here to show you guys real quick. Let's see, this might be a good option. So you can see here, we've got some nice options and there is the appearance of toe kick there. Not because I inset it, but just because of the shadow. Alrighty. So now let's say I wanted to place that drop-in sink base unit. If I were to do that now, it would create issues because this would affect, like the sink wouldn't be able to drop into that, right? We need a cavity. So let me just drag and drop that into place to show you, and then I'll show you how we're going to work around that. Same for a stove, right? This becomes an issue. So I'm going to select this again, click on modify. And when you are modifying a product that you've already started working on, the default setting when you go back into work on it is going to hide the environment around it. So you can just focus on the shape. Sometimes that's useful. In this case, we want to see where that sink is. So I'm going to go up here to hide environment and I'm just going to unhide it so that now I can see where this base unit sits. I'm just going to orbit my screen so that I'm looking at the top, and I'm going to grab my pen tool, which draws straight lines, click on the edge, bring it on down, click on that edge. As soon as I get that sticky key, I'm just going to click escape, and then I'm going to do the same on the other side. It's going to snap me on, and it's also, I'm not sure if you guys can see it on my screen, but the edges will highlight blue to let you know that you're on the edge. And then click escape again. Now I've defined this as a separate plane for push-pull. So I'm going to click here and I'm simply going to slice this away. Click escape. And now I can click done. And there we are. Now I have the cavity that I need to fit this base unit right into place. I can resize it, drop my farmhouse sink in from the catalog, and keep going. If you need something like this, so you'll see there's a little bit of countertop behind the sink here. All you're gonna do is just change where you draw with that pen tool. Okay, so let's go back here. I'm gonna pull this back up. And then you would just use the pen tool to draw here. And define it as a separate plane so that you can just push this down. And that way you have a space for your faucet to sit in the back without having to use like a wall docked cube to create that additional. You could always do that if you sliced it away and you didn't have it to work with. You couldn't undo, maybe you were working on other things. You can always just use a wall docked cube to create this little backing, but you can do that here as well. All right, so I did the exact same process for the stove here to create the cavity for the stove. Placed my cabinet shutters over top, applied my textures, and then went into the catalog and looked up handles and knobs and found those. Double click here and applied them. So I've got some pulls here and some knobs. For the pulls, because I have some cabinetry that's repeating here, what I recommend doing, so let's say I started over here. Anytime you can clone something, group it and clone it, and just repeat it in another area of your space, that's going to help you work smarter and faster rather than just harder, because applying pulls everywhere and hardware everywhere can get a little tedious. So what I did, because I knew that I had these double door base units on the other side here, I simply placed these two, resized them as needed, and put them both into free movement. So anytime you're grouping a product, this is going to change pretty soon. You won't have to put items into free movement to group them, but for the time being you do. So select it, put it into free movement. And then if you're working on a Mac, you're going to hold down Command Shift, click on one, and then click on the other. If you're working on an HP, it's just holding down Control Shift. You'll click on both, and then the option to group products will appear up top here. You'll click on group, and then you have the option to clone. And now I can just slide this on over and apply it to the other cabinets over here. Do be sure that if you are, so it all depends on what you're doing, right? For these knobs, they were too big when I first dragged and dropped the first one. So just make sure if you drag and drop one, resize the one, change the texture to the one, get it perfect, and then clone from there. Don't give yourself the headache of dragging and dropping from the catalog and resizing over and over again. Just do it once and then clone your way through the rest of the project. Just keep in mind, when you do clone anything in this software, the textures will always clone as well. So you can clone a knob and then resize it and it won't affect the original. But if you clone a knob and change the texture will also change on the original. Okay. Alrighty, so for the wall units, let me double click. These are full units. Again, I typed in wall that were in the catalog. So I didn't have to build these custom. These open shelving options are in the catalog here. I just applied a different paint color and different texture to the shelves themselves, and then went into staging and looked up that food, drink, and crockery to add some staging. But here you go. Just to give you an idea of what's here. And then you have some that are already fit to size, but you can of course resize these as needed. This did not come, you'll see, it does not come with this trim. So I'm going to show you how I did this. It's much easier than you think. This is something that comes up a lot. So first go to molding and trim. And here, I'll just delete this entirely to show you guys that I'm not joking. It is pretty easy. All right. So molding and trim first. I'm going to narrow my search here. I don't want to see handles. There we go. Do not bother with inner corners. If you have an inner corner, you're not going to have it for cabinets, but you might have it for your actual kitchen space for your walls. Just take two straight pieces and run them into each other. And then you can just align them. So in 2D mode, before you start messing around with cabinets, shutters, trim, anything, do yourself a favor, go into 2D mode, click on this settings gear and turn off. So the default is that object snapping is going to be turned on. Object snapping is either your best friend or your worst enemy, depending on what you're doing, right? So if you are working in either 2D or 3D mode and you notice that products are snapping to the wall, or maybe you're trying to move it and it's snapping over here, that's really useful for, say, if you're aligning like wall panels, because it's going to snap those seams of each panel tight right next to each other. It's not going to overlap and it's not going to leave any gaps that end up showing in your renders. So there is a benefit to object snapping, but in this case, turn it off. That's going to give you free range of mobility and like more minute control over your products. And that's going to really come in handy with your trim and also with applying your cabinet shutters. Okay, so sometimes when I speak with designers and they're really struggling to get this trim, the thing that's bugging them is the snapping back and forth, and then it's not aligning. Okay, so let's go back into our catalog here quickly. We're going to just focus on our outer piece. I'm just going to drag and drop this. And then our straight piece. Okay, so first I'm going to grab this guy, put it into free movement. Sometimes these will dock to the wall. Other times they'll want to dock to the ceiling. So if you have a really high ceiling, like I do here, you might just have to dock it real quick to the ceiling and then put it into free movement to bring it down. But then just know from there, you can just clone them so you're not constantly having to drag them to the ceiling. Also, if you are rotating, another time saver, if you have to flip something, 90 degrees or 180, just go to edit and do a flip. So you'll see here, I need this corner on the other side. I can just do a horizontal flip. I don't have to manually rotate it and waste all that time. And then vertical is going to flip it front to back. So you have that available to you. And now I'm going to click on this and I'm just going to move it into place. I'm going to resize it. It only wants to resize from this edge. So I'm just going to pull this out from the wall until it's sitting where I need it to over here. And then I'm going to push it in. So that it's hugging that corner. And then I'm just going to use my arrows to align it with this corner. Also, when you're moving from, say, resize or rotation back into free movement, there's a tendency to click on free movement because that's what you want, those arrows back. And then this message comes up and people panic. This is just asking if you want to take it out of free movement, which is basically going back to only having 2 arrows rather than 3. So you can just click cancel. And what you actually want to do is, say you're in rotation, you're just going to click on rotate again to essentially turn rotation off, and that will automatically bring you back to your arrows, or resize and then click on resize again to turn it off and your arrows will come back up. So if you keep running into that issue where it's asking you, do you want to proceed and leave free movement, just know that you just have to turn these tools off. Okay. Alrighty, so that looks like it's fitted pretty well. I'm just going to bring it on up here. And there we go. Now I'm going to grab my straight piece. I'm going to also put that into free movement because I know I'm going to have to use it. And for something as detailed as this trim, I would avoid, this is a small area right here, so I don't even need to lengthen it. But say for a space like this, which I'll show you next, let me double click here. you'll see here, I have 1, 2, 3 of these pieces lined up next to each other rather than simply resizing it lengthwise, because if I resize it lengthwise, it's going to stretch all of this design. If you have a very plain, simple molding, don't clone. Don't waste your own time and clone all of these and line them up next to each other. Just lengthen it. Just use the resize and lengthen it straight across the top of this cabinet and just line it up with your 2 corner pieces, okay? So again, depending on what you're working with, you might have a different approach. So let's go back to this. I might resize this a bit. And I'm going to decrease this depth. And then there we go. So I might shorten this a tad, or I can click on this. Since I had to resize this, don't drag and drop, just clone this piece and then do another flip. There we go. And you can fit it right into place. This kind of runs right into that wall there, but just so you can see that we have that little corner. And now I'm just going to copy texture and material. And there we go. So the last thing that you can do, say you had something very similar here, or you're just worried about these moving independently, is group them so that if you do accidentally grab it and move it, you're not in a situation. Oh, I'm going to apply the gray. So these guys too, okay. You're not in a situation where you're moving like a singular piece. So I think these are already all in free movement. I'm going to hold down Command Shift for my Mac, click on all 3, group them. And now I can move them jointly. I can also click on them, ungroup them, and then clone this guy, move it on over here, and do the exact same process over here. So anytime you don't have to do the resizing, save yourself that time, because this can get like a little involved, right? And again, I already explained that I took these straight edges. I simply cloned this straight edge, and then I just cloned it 2 more times, lined up those seams really easily. And there I have a cabinet trim. So I hope that makes it a little bit easier for you guys. I feel like the biggest struggle is object snapping, but let me know if there's any other kind of issues you're facing with that, and we'll get into it. Okay, next thing I want to go over is, we'll go over the kitchen island in a second, but I want to go over the countertops, the backsplash, and yeah, those are the big ones. So again, create new product. I'm going to select the countertop first to show you guys. When I select modify, same as those base units, right? So the first thing that I did, when you're using create new product, you can draw on the floor, the wall, or the ceiling, but you can't draw on top of the base units that you've created. You can't draw on top of a product, right? So I drew this out on the floor, then I clicked done, and then I put this in 3D mode into free movement and lifted it and placed it on top of the base units that I had already built. And then I clicked on modify again and used push pull to make all of these little modifications and nips and tucks. So let me show you what that looks like. Since we've got this built over here, this is perfect. Okay. So I selected the floor real quick, clicked on create new product, and I'm just going to draw it on the inside here so you guys can see that the initial size does not have to be perfect. And this is where push pull rather than the resize option in 3D really comes in handy. So I'm just going to draw out this rectangle, and I'm going to quickly draw a little U shape. You can already see it is not to size, but that's okay. I'm going to give this, using push pull, a little bit of height. Doesn't have to be excessive, but it's really important. If you want to have the option to resize this, you need to have some depth or some height, because that's what gives you these edges. And that's where that resizing is happening. So don't skip over the step of giving it a little bit of depth. It's going to be the same for the backsplash that we do. So now I'm just going to slice away at this, and then I'm going to click done. Put this into free movement. And as you can plainly see, it's not to size. If I were to use the resize button right now in 3D mode, what it's going to do is it's going to resize it uniformly, right? So it's going to stretch whatever cavity that you've created. So if this were, for a sink, it would make the cavity larger as well. So that's where create new product push pull comes in handy, because you can just manipulate one specific area. So I'm going to undo that resize. I'm going to just place this on top here, and then I'm going to click on modify. Again, I'm going to unhide my environment because I need to see that base unit. And now we're going to push pull our way into place. So I'm going to grab this edge first, and I'm just going to drag it out and make it flush with the wall here. And then this guy, maybe there's a bit of overhang. And then this here. Another cool way to make like a breakfast bar kind of area as well. So I'm just clicking, I'm not holding down my left click, I'm just clicking once to kind of grab hold. There we go. And I will do the same all around. And then the last thing that I'll do once I have this sized appropriately is use either the rectangle tool or the pen tool to create cavities on the top of the countertop, or say my sink. Oops. And there we go, right? So now I'll grab my pen tool, click on the edge here. I'm not sure I drew those lines straight just now. They look a little wonky. So this one's not perfectly straight. Trim tool, the little scissors, double click, and it'll get rid of that line. So actually, let's go over this. This is a good one to go over. So let's say you draw this line, it's not straight, you slice away at it. And you think this is something that I've done in the past, and I literally deleted the entire product. So let's say we did that and we push pulled away. The trim tool, those scissors will work on a line, but not on geometry. So if I try and grab this scissor right now and double click on this edge, because oh no, it's not straight, it's going to tell me that I can't because I've created geometry. I've created something with definition. But all is not lost. You don't need to delete this and start from scratch. All you need to do is grab your pen tool again, create a straight line, and now you've defined this as its own plane, and slice away. And again, we can click on these edges, pull them out, push them back, whatever we need to do, right? So don't do what I did when I first started using this tool and think that I can't make edits or erase something, quote unquote, erase something once I've created geometry, because there's always a way around it. So there we go, custom countertops. Cool. Now it might move a little. So you see what happened there? It just shifted. It didn't resize it. There we go. Just pull it out. And then I just applied my marble countertop texture. I created the same cavity again for the stove over here, and that was how I achieved that look. So let's see, what time are we working with? 1:30. Okay. Okie dokie. Let's talk about the kitchen island. There are actually some really nice options already in the catalog, but but I understand that you might be working with something custom. So just always check the catalog first. Don't give yourself extra work if you don't have to. But these options are here. You can, of course, change the textures, materials, and size. But this bad boy, we built custom with Create New Product. This is a wine cooler. You can just search for wine cooler in the catalog. You can search for a hood. You can search for drop-in sinks, farmhouse sinks, dishwasher, fridge. All of that is very straightforward. So just go ahead and give that a search. For this, I'm going to show you some of the details that I added. So this is a drop-in sink that I created just using the rectangle tool. So it's a bit more modern, and then push pull. And I'll show you how I use the circle tool and offset to create the appearance of a drain. And then I wanted to create, so this is a little drop-in here. And I don't even know what it's called. It's one of those bread slicers, you know, those bread boxes, and they have the grate, and it has like a little drawer. It's like a little wooden box, and you place your bread on top of it and you can cut it. And the idea is that it catches all of the crumbs. So I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to build that into an island? So I used the rectangle tool and then push pulled it down to create that cavity, created the little appearance quickly of a drawer that can be pulled out and dumped. And then this, I needed something to replicate that kind of wooden grate that you would place the bread on. So when I click on edit, you'll see this is actually a wooden panel that's meant as a wall partition. So I just dragged and dropped it into the space, rotated it, and resized it significantly. And there were metal pieces. Let me just lift this up here at the edge. So I grabbed my handy dandy invisible material and dragged and dropped it and applied it just to the metal. And then I just tucked it in. And it's hidden by the countertop anyway, but even if it weren't, it would not render. So just kind of a fun, cool way to customize. So let me just quickly show you how I did this. Really easy, and basically doing the same exact thing that we've been doing this whole time. One thing that I will pull up for you guys to take a snapshot of on a previous webinar, I made like a little cheat sheet for Create New Product that explains what each one of these tools does. And so I'll bring that up at the end so that you guys can take a snapshot, or if you want to just email me directly, I can send you the PDF. Maybe we can link that somewhere, Ryan, I'm not sure. But this tool, so if you're working in kitchens and baths, what I would recommend is taking the time to really learn the Create New Product tool, because it has so many applications. And once you understand what each one of these tools does, you can think and walk yourself through pretty much any build. Really, really valuable feature of this software. Okay, island. So I'm going to draw the rectangle on the floor. You can enter specific dimensions here if you have them, and you just start typing. You don't have to move your cursor to click on those windows. I'm going to push pull myself up. Anytime you're using push pull, don't look dead on at something, because if I try and pull it towards me right now, I can't pull my cursor out of my screen, right? So the software gets a little confused. It might end up pushing it away. So that's why you'll always see me angle it to the side, and that way I'm just pulling it up. Okay. Now I want to have a little breakfast bar area. So I'm going to maybe use my ruler tool and click on the edge here just to make sure that however far it's coming in and down is uniform. And you can, of course, just type and click enter. And then I can use my rectangle tool or my pen tool. It's going to snap me onto the ruler, snap me all around, and I'm just going to click, click, click. And now that I've defined it, and again, I'm just clicking the escape key, you'll see these are two separate planes. If ever you hover your push-pull cursor over a plane that you've just defined with a rectangle or pen tool, and the whole thing highlights, don't push-pull, because that's telling you that at one of these edges, that pen has not been joined. So you can just kind of zoom into the edge here, and you might find that there's a little gap, and then you can just grab your pen tool. It'll automatically snap onto the edge for you, click, and then you're just closing off that gap. The same as if sometimes like your walls aren't joined in 2D mode and you have to just like add a little wall, you can do that here as well. You don't have to erase all of your lines and start from scratch. Okay, so let's grab push pull. We're gonna push this back, and you can set whatever this depth needs to be. So say it needs to be 1 foot, click enter, there we go. And what's so nice about doing this with Create New Product is that each one of these planes is a separate plane that you can also apply a different texture to. So again, another benefit of Create New Product is that unlike a cube, like one of the white cubes, which the texture would apply uniformly to all sides, Create New Product, you'll always have the option to define every single plane. And I click the escape key. Then we can go over here, grab our rectangle tool and just draw over top for wherever our sink needs to be. And then we had our little bread box situation thing over here, right? And I wanted this to be a prep sink that had 2 spaces. So I just grabbed my pen tool and I defined that barrier between the 2 sinks. Click escape, and now I'm gonna grab push pull, push this down. We'll say just 8 inches for now. And I want to show you how I did that drain. So there we go. The drain, I use the circle tool, not as commonly used. Most of the time we're using our rectangle, but this is a good example. We do have drains in the catalog, so you don't have to do this. But if you want to, you can just click, move this out, set that diameter. And then I grabbed offset, and offset creates borders within whatever shape you're working in. It could be a circle, a rectangle, it could be an irregular shape. It will replicate whatever it's working in. So you're gonna click once and then just not hold down your cursor, just move out your mouse and then click again. And there we go. And now I can grab push pull if I want to get really detailed and fancy. And I can pull this up just a tad to give the appearance that the drain is open. There we go. And I can even move that a bit to separate it from the sink. Okay. And possibly my screen just froze. 1 second. Yeah. Yep. Okay, let's see if we click on wait, if it'll bring me back. Sometimes being on this call, these calls kind of drains my RAM. All right, I'm going to refresh real quick. And I see the chat is blowing up, so let me check this out. Okay, let's go to the top real quick. Charlotte Cook is asking, how long did it take you to become proficient with the program? So I started as a customer of Foyr Neo, not as an employee, last September. And I would say was 3 months in, was hired to work for the company. So I'm trying to think, how long did it take me? I would say definitely being in a position where I was training other designers to use the software definitely put me into that mode of, you know, learning what I was doing, right? So it's all a matter of how much time you can kind of take, and also talking with other designers who use the software. That's been the most beneficial thing for me, has been like picking up these little tips and tricks. It wasn't just because I just magically came across them. You talk with more advanced people, you attend webinars, things like this, and then you start to gather. So this level Proficient took me this long, but I was creating spaces full, you know, designing full apartments for people by my 4th month, and was like very confident in doing that. But It certainly doesn't take 4 months for you to be proficient in the software. It's just depending on what projects you're taking on and what challenges those projects present will depend on how, like which areas of the software you learn more about. So like I didn't get super proficient with create new product until I had my first kitchen project, and then I really did. But by far I tried 3 other software before I landed on Foyr, and by far the easiest learning curve that there was, for sure. Janine, okay, so I'm still having problems getting free movement with grouped objects. Yes, okay. I made sure to put an object into free mode before grouping, then click away. Okay, so the answer to this, Janine, is that right now, once objects are grouped, you cannot move them in free movement, but that is changing. So you'll notice that when you group products, you can only move them side to side or up and down, say, or maybe back and forth. And you don't have the option to say like resize, rotate in all directions, you put it into free movement, but that's changing. So the software as a whole is getting several new features added in the next few weeks. And that's one of the features. Once you group products, you can not only clone them, but you'll be able to manipulate that grouping in these exact same way as anything else from the product catalog. So that's coming soon, and you're correct, you're not able to do that right now. Okay. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll group products, clone them, move them, and then if I need free movement, I'll just ungroup them real quick, but it still saves me a bit of time because now they're all the way, where I need them to be in the general location, and then I just kind of fit those into place, but that's coming. Rebecca is asking, will you please share this recording? I stepped away and missed how you trimmed the trim. Oh, no problem. Yeah. So for all of you attendees, the webinar recording will be automatically emailed to you after we finish. And I can always, this is giving me some trouble right now, but we can go over that once more as well. Oh, Ryan already answered you. Sorry. Okay, Janine, is there a way to keep the texture materials tile size when you copy from one texture material to another? I noticed that when you copy the texture across, it defaults to the original tiles where it's copied to. Okay, so I think I understand what you're saying and what matters here. So if you were to, I'm going to actually close out of this project and reopen it. Sorry. If you apply a texture to a surface and say it's a wall and it's 10 feet wide, and you adjust the size of that texture and then copy texture material that over to a wall that's 2 feet wide, the size that you've set, so say you've adjusted your number of tiles, right, Janine? I think you know what I'm talking about. Goodness gracious. Say you've adjusted the size of those tiles, it's going to replicate that size. So say the number of tiles on the X and Y axis was like 3 to 2 for that 10-foot wall. It's going to replicate that 3 to 2 tile on the 2-foot wide wall. But 3 to 2 in terms of the amount of tiles that we're packing in on the X and Y is going to look very different on a wall that's only 2 feet wide than it is on a wall that's 10 feet wide. So that's why you're running into that issue. It's not that it's defaulting back to the original, it's just probably that the planes that you're applying them to are pretty significantly different in size. So that's going to come with some playing around. Let me know if that answers your question. And just keep in mind that the higher the number of tiles you have, the tighter the design, right? And then the smaller that number, the bigger the design. So that's a good way of thinking of it. If you have a much smaller wall, you're gonna also have a much smaller X and Y axis number of tiles to make it look the same as a bigger wall. I hope that makes sense. Oh, great. And the cheat sheet is linked here. Awesome. Okay, Abby is asking, where are all of these tools you're referencing found, the ones listed on the left side of the screen? Okay, so that's when you go, let me try and reopen this project quick. That's when you select create new product, which is in the top right-hand corner. So it's still giving you that 3D view, like you're in 3D mode, but the tools available to change, and they're all on the left side. I'll show you that in 1 second. Yeah, create new product. Okay, Rachel, I don't see the new product tool when I start a new project. Please advise, from Carolina. That might have to do, if you're on a free trial, you might not have access to the create new product tool. Reach out to me, Carolina. I'm going to type in my email address, and this goes for anybody. If something comes up, you can always reach out. It's rachel@foyr.com. Reach out to me directly. We'll talk about what your account specifically is. That has to be what it is. Otherwise, you should definitely be seeing that tool. So we'll talk about that directly. Awesome, Janine. Glad to help. All right, cool. Well, we got through some of the Q&A while we waited for this to figure itself out. And I will show you. Create new product will always live here. We'll just let this load. And then we'll go over Backsplash, which is just going to feel very familiar to you guys by now because it's the exact same process of rectangle, push-pull, pen tool to define around, say, like a window or different, different heights for your cabinets. And then we apply texture to it. One thing to keep in mind, if you are, so you can use a wall-docked cube. Let me see if I can orbit my screen here. Well, it's still loading. Okay. So let's say you just have straight cabinets up here. You don't have to use create new product to create that rectangle. You can just drag and drop a wall docked cube from the catalog, apply it to the wall, flatten it down to 0 depth so that it's just a thin piece of paper kind of sitting on the wall, and then apply a texture. But say it's subway tile where you want that grout to be lining up on this side and this side. If you clone this wall docked cube that you've just dragged and dropped and apply it and then rotate it onto this wall, keep in mind that if this length here is very different from this length here, if you edit the texture size or the number of tiles on this wall, it's going to affect this one as well. So depending on, let me just show you an example of that. Depending on the size that you're going to be changing that cloned item to, it may be the better decision to just drag and drop an entirely new wall docked cube and apply that texture separately so that you can independently adjust the size of the tile on this wall and on this wall. Also, if you use the offset tool here and you move the texture up and down or side to side, it's going to do it for both. So that's going to end up giving you issues. So just keep that in mind. Anytime you clone something, you're going to be impacting the texture size on both of those items, even though you can resize them independently. Okay. Well, if that didn't make sense, let me know and I'll show you an example. If not, let's talk about the custom backsplash and create new product. So I just had a little bit of space here that needed to be cut away to accommodate for this window. And so I did that with create new product. So you'll see I selected this. If I click on modify, there it is. And let's just do another one. I'm going to hide the environment away real quick. Or not. Some issues in this on my computer today. Let's click over here. Okay. Alrighty. So again, rectangle tool, if I had a window here, I'm just going to draw straight across that window and not even worry about it. And you'll see this would go right over the glass, right? Now I'm going to push pull first so that I can have these edges to resize it. I'm gonna just look up at this guy. Or I can hide my, will it work for me now? Yes, awesome. Okay, click, pull that down. And click and pull that out. Okay. Bring back my environment so I could see that window. And let's say our window just sat here. This is some seriously tall backsplash. Here we go. So let's say our window cuts in right here. I'm just gonna grab my pen tool, click on that edge. It's gonna highlight blue for me. And then I would just trace right around where that window would go. And then we'll push pull to create the cavity. And even though we have this like 1 inch depth, there we go. And then again, we have these little edges here, so we could pull it in if we needed to, if our pen tool wasn't perfectly accurate, right? Click done. And I've got this kind of 1 inch depth here. That's too thick for maybe the tile that, for what I actually want it to look like. So I'm just gonna select this once we've headed back into 3D and click on edit. And then the length, which is actually referring to the depth of a product, a little confusing. So this is 2 inches right now. I'm gonna set this to 0. Click enter. And it's still going to exist. Sometimes there's some confusion that if you enter 0, it's gonna disappear. It will still be there. And now it's nice and thin. And you can apply a texture and then resize that texture. Alrighty, I'm trying to think if we covered everything. These are just some different door options. So just so you know, we do have French doors, we have glass doors, and we have open doors. And you can change the orientation of these. So if this door needed to be, if the hinge needed to be on the right side, that's where that horizontal flip is going to come in handy. Just select the door, click on edit, and then click on horizontal flip. If this needed to open in, you would just do a vertical flip, and now the door is opening in. All right. This is a tall unit shutter. And I've used just a floor docked or a wall docked cube here in the back and applied the texture. What else? What else? We went over our crockery unit. We have a lot of really nice like finishing touches like espresso machines and different stuff. This is a wall partition. So that's why I told you, that's why I added partition to that, to the slide, to the webinar slide there. So I just dragged and dropped one of these and it cuts off right here. I cloned it and then I did a horizontal flip so that I could create this little space and this little nook for this walk-in pantry. This is a mini fridge, like so much stuff. So if you're looking for it, we have it already. And if you can't find what you need, reach out to the community first, just to make your life a bit easier, or you can reach out to the chat bubble here and they'll be able to help you. If you haven't already checked out the community, it's community.foyr.com, and you can, if you guys have questions or just need help on anything, or just want to share something that you've worked on, you can just type that in here, just like a Facebook feed, and I'll be on daily. Other Foyr employees will be on daily to answer your questions. If you're like, hey, I'm looking for this and I can't find it, just reach out and let us know. Okay. And then the very last option that you have, if you have something very, very custom, if you're on the standard or premium plan, you have access to my model requests. So from the catalog, you go to my models and you simply take a snapshot. I'll show you. I needed this for a kitchen, actually, this specific pendant. So I took a snapshot of it off of Home Depot, clicked on it, entered the dimensions of the base, just 12 by 12, entered the dimensions of the chain length, and within 24 to 48 business hours, the product team at Foyr will build this out for you, add it to the catalog, and you'll have access to it across all of your projects. So this uses model credits, which is why if you're on the standard or the premium plan, you get a certain amount of credits per month. So as a last option, if you can't find what you're looking for, you always have that. Alrighty. I hope this helped you guys. I'll go back to the chat. Awesome, Gigi. I'm glad this helped. And we have several. So create new product, like I said, taking the time to really master this particular tool is going to make your life so much easier for ceiling designs, for exteriors. And check out our YouTube page, because we have multiple webinars that go over create new product in detail, because it just has so many applications. Okay, yeah, Carolina, shoot me an email and we'll talk more about what might be going on, and we can even jump on a call and I'll check out your screen. Create new product does not display for me either. Email forthcoming. I don't have a trial either. Okay, yeah, Abby, definitely let me know. Thanks, Ryan. Yeah, we'll get that looked into right away. You guys should have access to that. Okay, Gigi, awesome, awesome. Community link, fantastic. Brandy, I got on here late, but is there an efficient way to apply hardware to cabinets? So yeah, no worries. So there are certain parts that are always a tiny bit tedious, but what I like to do to try and minimize the amount of time that I'm spending. Let me put this into heavy mode so we can see some detail. There we go. So you'll notice I have these double cabinet, base cabinets here, and then they're actually repeating. I have two more down here. So what I did was I found the knobs that I wanted. I dragged and dropped them. And then the very first thing that I did was I resized them to whatever this singular knob needed to be, applied the texture that I wanted, and then I simply cloned it. Put it into place here, spaced it appropriately, and then put each of these into free movement. And if you're on a MacBook, you're going to hold down Command Shift. If you're on an HP, you're going to hold down Control Shift and click on one, click on the other, and it's going to give you the option to group. So then you group those, and now you can clone them. And in this case, I'm able to just slide them right on over to the units that are the exact same, and then place them right there. And then clone it again and place it right there. So that's one way to do it. Anytime you can group something, clone it, and just slide it on over, that's going to save you time for something like this. But certainly, even if you can't group something, definitely clone it. So don't find this knob and then drag and drop it, resize it, apply a new texture over and over and over again for every single door. Just get one the way that you want it, clone it, put it into free movement, and then move it all around and place it. The only time that wouldn't be useful is, so for this handle here, I didn't change the size of this or the texture of this at all. So in this particular case, it was actually easier for me to just drag and drop it and then double click on this shutter over here and drag and drop it again, rather than cloning it and moving it over. It was easier for me to just manually place them because I wasn't doing all of that resizing. So depending on what you're doing, those are the two different options that I recommend. Let's see. Janine, just thought of another question for pendant lights. What's a cheat to create longer chain without messing with the proportions, perhaps to just hide the chain and add your own? Yeah, so right now there's not the option to just increase the length of a chain for a pendant light. You're absolutely right. So we do have just a free hanging chain in the catalog now to help with this issue. It's right here. There's actually two, 1, 2. So what you can do, let me find, let's work out here. Let's say we drag and drop this chain. You can resize the chain to what you need it to be, apply the texture that you need it to be, and then make the chain on the pendant light invisible and just attach the actual pendant to the base of this. Right, and that way we're not warping the actual shade or whatnot itself, right? So yet another application for the invisible material tool, which is our best friend. There we go. All right. There we go. And then I would just put this into free movement and bring it on down. Okay. Not the most accurate right now, but for time's sake, there we go. That's what you do. So just type in chain in the catalog. No worries. All right. Any other questions coming up for you guys? Anything kitchen related, create new product related that we didn't get to? We have a little bit of time, so I'd be happy to address that now. And one more in the chat. Let's see. Can you change the grout color of the backsplash texture? So right now, no. So what you would have to do is find, okay. What you would have to do is find a picture of the tile that you want with the grout that you want and upload that as a custom texture. Do you know how to upload a custom texture? This is to Brandy. You do. Okay. Yeah. So one of the caveats, yeah, you'd have to just find it online. You can even just be a picture, try and make sure that the lighting is as even as possible on the little snapshot that you have, because that can really affect when you're increasing the number of tiles. That can affect the overall look. It's if like this side is well lit and then this side is shaded, that gets a little like wonky, but otherwise, yeah. But that's a good future feature that we should definitely have, is changing grout specifically. Are the ceiling beams also create new product or ceiling docs? So the ceiling beams, Rebecca, this is just a ceiling design that I dragged and dropped from the catalog. So it's an entire unit. Oops. And I just cloned it. I placed 2 because I wanted 2 of these beams here. And I can change the color of these beams. I can change the color of the wood. And yeah, and I just sat them in. And that's why my walls are 20 feet, because I had this vaulted ceiling sitting in from, because it's going to attach to the inside of the ceiling and drop down into the space. So you just have to make sure that your total wall height in 2D mode is set to accommodate for this pitch here, and then still have your walls be the appropriate height from the base of the cathedral to the floor. We actually did a webinar just on ceiling designs and create new product. So definitely check that out. But yeah, this is just a plain ceiling design. But you could use a wall duct. You could use a ceiling duct cube, but we do have beams specifically and columns in the catalog itself. These are good questions. Awesome. Okay, so the follow me tool on create new product. I'm trying to think of where that would be applicable in a kitchen, but we can definitely go over that. So one thing I want to say to the 2 people who said that create new product is not showing up, I just want to show you one thing. If I select this entryway, create new product does not pop up as an option because I can't draw a shape on this entryway. But if I click on the wall, the floor, or the ceiling, because those are planes that I'm allowed to draw on and create new products, that tool pops up. So maybe just check your project real quick and make sure that, like, just click on a plain wall with nothing on it and see if that pops up. Because if you're selected on something specifically, it will not show up. So maybe that's what's happening, and that's just like a really quick fix for you. Let me know. Okay, follow me tool is, we go into create new product, is really used for creating like a ledge on something that you've created that's curved, right? So we did the ceiling design as an example, and I'll just do that again here. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle here. I'm going to push pull this down and use a new tool, which for this webinar at least, which is point arc, to create a nice curve. So I'm at my midpoint, bring this out, create a slight curve there. This is by no means going to be very accurate, but just as an example. Pull that out. Now I've got a nice little swerve, and I'm going to push pull this up. and I can slice away at it. And so now I've got this curve here, right? So let's say I had this as a ceiling design and I wanted to have like a little ledge to apply lighting on the inside. That's where Follow Me would come in handy. So one of the tools I would say, like circle, point arc, and Follow Me are the least used tools of this. And then like rectangle, pen tool, push pull are all the time. Okay, but how we use that. So the first thing that we're going to do is define the size of that ledge. We're going to do that on a flat edge like this. So we've got a nice little rectangle here, and we're going to draw a rectangle on this edge here. So if I wanted it this big, or if I wanted it this big, I'm just going to define how tall that ledge should be. And then I'm going to click on Follow Me, select the rectangle first that I've drawn, and then I'm going to select the edge just once. You guys probably can't see that, but it did highlight blue just now. And now you'll see that that little rectangle is going around that curve. And now I'm going to click the escape key. And that's what that does. It's going to follow that shape all the way around. So yeah, Janine, not as frequently used depending on what you're doing. I guess if you're doing lots of kind of swervy architectural builds, this might come in handy, but one of the lesser used tools. No worries. Janine, I'm so impressed with how quickly you have learned this software and the work that you've put out. If you guys don't know Janine, check her out on the community. She's awesome. She just did a kitchen or like a pantry that was beautiful. Really nice job. All right. Cool. I'm just going to click done here and get rid of this. Okay, guys, so I'll give it just another couple of minutes in case any questions pop up, and you're welcome. And otherwise, reach out anytime to customer support. Definitely sign up for a masterclass, which is just a sit down, live sit down 45 minutes with myself or one of my coworkers, and we will delve into either your specific project or give you like an overview of basics, whatever you want to focus on. We can tailor it specifically to your needs, and that's complimentary with your membership. So yeah. And otherwise, check out the community. It looks like this. Again, we've got a feed. We have an online, tons of online coursework for starting up your business, and tons of designers in the industry have partnered with Foyr to give these courses. It comes with, workbooks and resource pages. This is just so useful. And you can learn a little bit more about them there. We have all of our previous webinars here and all sorts of things. And then we have actual jobs. So if you're looking for work, we have tons of jobs listed here, and you can also list your own job. So I was just speaking with a designer earlier today who has a very big project on her hands, but she just started Foyr. She's still learning, and the deadline for this project is like ASAP, and it's not quite enough time for her to learn the software in just a couple of days and get, because it's a very intricate project. So I was like, post it online, like post it on the community, pay somebody to get this done for you ASAP, who's an expert in Foyr, and then you have a little bit of time to learn the software yourself so that you're not posting jobs and down the road and you're just doing it yourself. So know that you have both options, and this is totally free to you. So take advantage of it. All right, let me go back into the chat. Check it out. Community link again, thanks. Okay, guys, I'm not seeing anything else pop up, so I'm going to assume you guys are good. You have my email. If not, if you need any help, and otherwise I will say bye-bye, and I'll see you next week. Bye. You're welcome. Bye.